In this video, we're going to show you how to drive your income to purchase your next policy and the assets you accumulate along the journey. My name is Darius.
And I'm Carmen. So let's jump into it because you need a system, family. How you earn money and how you spend money, we're going to call that your system. And it's all very simple. All you need is just structure in place in order to make sure that this happens, right? Because many people come to us and are like, Darius and Carmen, I want to get a life insurance policy, but I don't know how much to start with. So we're going to allow your money to tell you what you can start with. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. What I want you to do, family, we're going to put this all on the screen. I want you to determine what is your monthly net income, meaning what drops into your bank account. Then the next step, once you have that, is I want you to separate your expenses between two categories, Wealth Nation. I'm only giving you two. One category, we're going to call that your essential expenses, meaning food, water, shelter, and we'll throw some insurance in there, right? Your car insurance, your home insurance, because those are necessities, the absolute must that you need that can only go in essentials. Okay. And then everything else, we're going to consider that your lifestyle spending. So any debt that you have, grooming, gym, entertainment, all the things that you're into, your subscriptions, we're going to separate those two.
Right. Now, at this point, what you need to start considering is, what is this snapshot telling me? As I'm looking at my essential expenses, what am I identifying as essential expenses? What am I identifying as lifestyle? Because when you take a look at your snapshot for the month, you're going to be thinking like, okay, I don't have any breathing room because look at all the stuff that I spent money on or I spend money on. What is my thinking as I'm spending money on these different categories?
Now let's do a little bit of math, and all we want you to do is to add those two categories together, the lifestyle and the essentials, and then we want you to bring your income into it, and we want you to do a little bit of subtraction. So subtract your income from all those expenses, and the delta, what you're left with, we're going to call that your cash flow. All right? So your cash flow is actually going to be the directive action that you take to determine what you do with your money. Do you take that cash flow and put some money towards the side for essential savings should things come up? Do you take that cash flow? Do you start your next whole life insurance policy with it or a portion of it, right? Do you take some of that cash flow? Do you start investing it? What do you do with it? But the point is that cash flow, if it's positive, should be the directing force that you need to determine how you move forward. And you can't invest, you can't do anything without that clarity so that you understand how much money you got at the end of the day.
And here's an interesting tip as we're talking about different formulas and our income and our expenses. Let's determine your savings rate, because ideally where you want to be, a comfortable place, I think where you should aim for is to be around 15% or more. And you get that number by subtracting your expenses from your cash flow. And that difference, that is your cash flow, you'll take your cash flow and divide it by your monthly income.
So for example, let's use some numbers.
So for example, let's say you make $10,000 a month and your expenses are $9,000. You'll subtract $9,000 from 10, you'll get 1,000, and then you divide.
That's your cash flow. 1,000 is the difference.
And then you take your $1,000 and divide it by your income, which is $10,000, and you'll come up with 10%.
So that is a nice little gauge for you to determine how much am I even saving in the first place. And the reason why we're even sharing this with you, Wealth Nation, is because we recognize so many people jump into life insurance policies. So many people jump into investments without the clarity of understanding the cash that they have on hand. And that's why we want to get you into the groove of creating this system. And that way you can move forward making educated decisions with the money that you have, as opposed to just guessing and throwing numbers out there. And that's why it's important for you to know, because when you come to Wealth Nation and you say, I want a life insurance policy, have that number in mind so that we can then determine, okay, what do we do with the money? Maybe we're not taking all of the cash flow, right? Because you still have other things that you need to do, but at least that gives us a guide so that we can all get on the same page and figure out where your money is best directed.
Right, because being able to identify and having awareness as to what your money is doing to help you dictate as to what are the next steps. Because when you come to us and ask us these questions, we're just going to look at your numbers.
Yeah.
And the time that it takes for us to get the numbers is the amount of is more time that it takes for us to get your ship moving in the right direction. So if you can come to the table with these numbers in mind and knowing your numbers, not just working with us, but working with anybody, you'll have a easier conversation with the individuals that you're working with.
Yeah, and going back to like, why are we doing this in the first place? What's in it for you? Like we said, what's in it for you is the knowledge and the know-how to know that you actually have the cash flow on hand to move forward. If for whatever reason that cash flow number is negative, now you know you got to just go back and do simple math. There's no judgment here. Let's go back in our essential expenses and our lifestyle expenses and figure out where we're a little too top heavy
Right.
and where we can kind of wiggle things around to make sure that we're not spending more than what our income is.
Right.
Okay. So that's the other thing that we need to get in check, because as we're thinking about affordability for your next life insurance policy, depending on how much you have available will determine the life insurance product that we recommend, right? So we may out of the gate recommend a whole life insurance policy because you have a healthy amount of cash flow, or we may out of the gate recommend a term policy because maybe the cash flow is a little bit less, but that doesn't mean that it's weighted any differently. We're just going a different way because maybe term is affordable today. And then all we'll do is convert that term policy into a whole life insurance policy when we have a little bit more to play with as far as your cash flow is concerned.
Right. And here's the problem when we don't do things in the right sequence. Let's say you come to us and say you want a life insurance policy, but you have no idea where the money's going to come from. Let's say it comes from a bonus, but you can't sustain that annually.
Yeah, it's just a one-time thing.
It's a one-time thing. And what's going to happen is it's going to add to the stress that you already have because of the fact that you're tight.
Mm-hmm.
You're tight when it comes to your cash flow or your income and your expenses. Mm-hmm. And what we want is to live in that gap, that cash flow that you have, or that big gap that you can create. That's where opportunity and breathing room and cash flow lies. Mm-hmm. That's where the opportunity for you to accumulate assets come from. That's where the opportunity comes from, the ability for you to pay off your high interest debt. That's where all the opportunity lies. And if you add things to that without addressing it, then you're just going to add to the stress that already exists.
Mm-hmm. Now, Wealth Nation, here's a tip to consider again as far as affordability. Like right now, today, you might say I have an extra $800 a month to be able to afford my next whole life insurance policy. If that's the case, we also want you to consider your health. If you are in not good health or have pre-existing conditions, maybe some heart stuff, maybe some diabetes that hasn't been managed, some high blood pressure that hasn't been managed well, then that's going to determine how much your life insurance policy is actually going to cost, right? You may be a little bit more expensive than the average Joe who doesn't have health history. So those are things that we want you to consider. And then also if you are, 50 and older, not that it's going to be necessarily more expensive for you, but you have to realize that you might have to bring some more money to the table if you want an increased death benefit, right? Because it's more to insure you. So we're bringing this to the table because, again, we get the question all the time, Carmen Darius, I don't even know what to start with. So this is the blueprint that you need in order to start. And that way you can bring the numbers to us and then we all work together collaboratively to figure out what makes sense for you.
Now, here's why this sequence of events is very important. We talk about cash flow to buy whole life insurance, because a lot of times what you see us talking about is using our life insurance policy and infinite banking or cash flow banking. Well, the thing is, that's the third step. Step number one is you have to have the cash flow. Step number two is you have to buy the life insurance policy. And step number three is you have to leverage the life insurance policy. Mm-hmm. So if you don't do step number one, you can't do step number two. And so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So it's very important for you to be a good steward in the beginning, because once you get your life insurance policy and you start taking loans, what's going to happen is by the accumulation of different loans that you get to buy different assets, you have to manage that. Now, I said all that to say, if you can't manage your money at a small level, then it's going to become even more difficult to do it at a higher level when you add more zeros to the end of the opportunities that you have, because that's just going to generate more uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we want to help you from the beginning, so that as your cash flow increases, you know where it's coming from, where it's going, and where you're directing it. So that way, again, you can make educated decisions as far as what you do with your money.
If you want our help building this system for you, then click on the link below and join our webinar, Financial Freedom for Your Whole Life.
And don't forget to own your own lifestyle.
Or someone else will.